So in today class, we are going to start structure of atom. So this is the second chapter of volume 1 in your syllabus. As you know, I have two volumes, volume 1 and volume 2. So volume 1 consists of total physical chemistry part, and volume 2 consists of inorganic as well as organic part. Okay. Now in that volume 1, this is the second chapter. First chapter is basic concepts of organic chemistry. Just introduction part we discussed in the last 3 classes. So today we'll discuss structure of atom. So from this chapter you can get 10 marks for PU's examination. That is 2 5 marks questions there you. 2 5 marks questions you can get from this chapter. 5 plus 5 10 marks. So your PUC question paper consists of 1 mark questions, 2 marks questions, 3 marks and 5 marks questions. So in that from this chapter you can get 2 5 marks questions. There is 10 marks weightage is there. Like that each and every chapter is having certain weightage. As per that only the question paper will be given. Okay, right. So what is the internal structure of atom? As we discussed in our previous classes, what is matter? What are the components of matter, molecules and atom? And as per Dalton's atomic theory, what we discussed is atom is the smallest particle which is indivisible. But later some experimental evidences shows that atom is divisible, and the atom consists of 3 fundamental particles. Those are nothing but electrons, protons and neutrons. So these are the 3 fundamental particles which are discovered in the earlier days of 19th century. Then how these particles are discovered, what is the charge and what is the mass of these 3 particles, we'll discuss one by one. Let us say the electrical properties of matter was first studied by the scientist Michael Faraday. So Faraday has studied the electrical properties of electrolytic solutions. Means by taking an electrolyte, if apply electric field through the electrodes, he noticed that some chemical reactions takes place at the electrodes. So from this what will come now is in electrolytic solutions electric charge is passed, means electric charge can be passed through the electrolytic solutions. Later Michael Faraday applied the same concept for gases also by taking discharge tubes. Michael Faraday, Crookes, J.J. Thomson, like that different scientists has carried out experiments for studying the conductivity in gases. But the main credit goes to J.J. Thomson, who discovered cathode rays, which consists of electrons. Let us say how J.J. Thomson has discovered cathode rays, which consists of electrons. Discovery of cathode rays. Discovery of cathode rays. So cathode rays are discovered by the scientist J.J. Thomson. J.J. Thomson discovered cathode rays. For that, he has taken a discharge tube. So what is a discharge tube? So discharge tube is nothing but a long glass tube of length 50 centimeters to 1 meter, at which 2 metal plates are placed, which acts as electrodes, and these are connected to the terminals of a source, a high voltage source. Best example for discharge tube is nothing but what you are using tube lights in our houses. The tube lights what we are using are example of discharge tubes. And what the picture tubes we are using in television sets, that the picture tubes are best example of discharge tubes. Okay, right. Now a gas is present here in this discharge tube. Then they have applied the voltage of 240 volts. Then no change is observed in this discharge tube. Afterwards, they have increased the voltage slowly up to 10,000 volts. Even by increasing the voltage up to 10,000 volts also, there is no considerable change in the discharge tube. Later, that means at 1 atmosphere pressure, however the voltage we applied here, they didn't notice anything here. Afterwards, this discharge tube is connected to a vacuum pump. This discharge tube is connected to a vacuum pump, and the air what is present inside, this is removed slowly. So on removing air slowly, so whenever the pressure is reduced to 1 to 10 millimeters around, when the pressure is reduced to 1 to 10 millimeters, they noticed the light from in between these electrodes. In between these electrodes, they have identified the path of the light, just like as the glow of tube light. That means under this pressure at 1 to 10 mm, the gas produce light here, what is present inside the discharge tube. And then they have further reduced the pressure to 0.01 mm, nearly 10 to the power of -4 atmospheres. So when the pressure is decreased further from 10 millimeters to 0.01 mm, what they notice is slowly the light intensity will be decreased at 0.01 mm. So no light is observed, but the gas which is present inside this discharge tube continues electrical conducting property. No light is observed, but the light which is present inside the gas present inside the discharge tube continues to conduct electricity. Okay, right. This is cathode and this is anode. And what the rays are traveling from this cathode to anode are named as cathode rays. These are known as cathode rays. See once again, discharge tube is nothing but a long glass tube of 50 centimeters to 100 centimeter length. Two electrodes are placed at the two terminals and connected to the high voltage source. And this high voltage source can produce a potential difference of 10,000 volts. At normal conditions of atmospheric pressure, on applying this high voltage, there is no change observed in the discharge tube. But when the pressure is decreased to 1 to 10 millimeters, they have noticed a light is produced from the discharge tube. That means the gas molecules that are present in the discharge tube, they produce light. On further decrease in temperature, on further decrease in pressure up to 0.01 mm atmospheric pressure, then they noticed that the intensity of light slowly decreased, but the gas present in the discharge tube retains its conducting property. That means the rays produced from cathode and travel towards anode, but they are not visible to our eyes. No light is there, but the gas is having conducting property. That means some rays are traveling from cathode to anode, and these are named as cathode rays. These are named as cathode rays. Okay, what does this cathode rays consist of? What are the properties of this cathode rays are? Let us see one by one. So to find the nature of this cathode rays, so they did some modification in this discharge tube. What the first one is, in the path of this cathode rays, they have placed a mechanical wheel. A mechanical wheel is placed in the path of cathode rays. When a mechanical wheel is placed in the path of cathode rays, they notice that this wheel get rotated. Why the wheel is rotated? What does from this what will come to know that? So this a wheel is rotated means the rays which are coming from the cathode must consist of some material particles. If there is no material particles in the cathode rays, the wheel cannot rotate. So the wheel placed means mechanical wheel placed in the path of cathode rays of negligible mass here. We notice that the mechanical wheel get rotated. This means that the cathode rays consists of material particles. This is one observation. And one more observation they did here. So when an object is placed here, so when an object is placed in the path, any one object having certain shape, when an object is placed in the path of cathode rays, they notice the shadow of that object on this screen, that is on this anode or on the discharge tube. So from this what we will come to know is, see the shadow is obtained means the rays are travel in straight lines without any deflection. This is the meaning. Suppose if the rays get deflected without shadow, we can get no shadow is noticed there. Since the shadow of the object is obtained, from this we will come to know that the cathode rays are travel in straight lines. Let us see what the characteristics are. First one. So these are produced from cathode and travel in straight lines. Cathode rays are produced from the cathode and travel in straight lines. See, these cathode rays are not visible to our eyes. We are not able to see the cathode rays. They are not visible. Then how to identify this cathode rays is, they just did one small modification here. Instead of placing a anode, they have placed a perforated anode. In place of anode, a perforated anode is placed, and behind this it is coated with the zinc sulfide, ZnS. Zinc sulfide is a fluorescent material. That means, so whenever this cathode rays travel in straight lines, and when they come out through these perforations and strike on this zinc sulfide screen, we can notice a bright spot. So whenever this cathode rays touches here on the zinc sulfide screen, we can notice a bright spot, which is known as fluorescence. So cathode rays are not visible, invisible. Second one, cathode rays are invisible. And can be identified by fluorescence or phosphorescence. By fluorescent material or phosphorescent material, we can notice the cathode rays. Best example, in a picture tube in TV. So whenever there is no signal received from antenna, so if you switch on the TV, you can observe some black and white dots on the picture and on the screen. Why? So behind that cathode will be there. In front of the television, what the screen is there. When this cathode rays touches the screen, we can observe a bright spot. That a dark and bright white and black spots means spots. What we got is, whenever the cathode ray touches the photographic film, that means screen, we can observe a bright spot there. So the cathode rays are not visible. They can be identified by fluorescence or phosphorescence phenomenon. Next, third one. So the travel in straight lines. So if there is no field is applied in absence of either a magnetic or a electric field, this cathode okay, right. Now see. So if there is no field, means in absence of any electric or magnetic field, they travel in straight lines without any deflection. Now here I will apply a magnetic field here. Now see, this is anode. Now in the path of this cathode rays, if we apply an electric field, that is one is positive plate and one is negative plate. So perpendicular to the path of, suppose like this, the cathode rays are traveling perpendicular to the path of cathode rays, the electric field is applied. On applying electric field perpendicular to the path of cathode rays, right. So in electric field, sorry, when electric field is applied, the cathode rays are deflected towards a positive pole. Means that from this what will come to know is the cathode rays consists of negatively charged particles, because these rays are deflected towards positive plate. So oppositely charged particles will attract each other. Since these cathode rays are deflected towards positive plate, it indicates that the cathode rays consist of negatively charged particles. Right, that is the next property. In electric field, they deflected towards positive pole. In electric field, they are deflected towards positive pole. This indicates that the cathode rays consist of negatively charged particles. Right. Now, next, one more experiment. Now, they have studied the nature of these cathode rays in the presence of magnetic field. Means they have placed a magnet here, north pole and south pole. Perpendicular to the path of the cathode rays, they have placed a magnetic field. Then they noticed that in the presence of magnetic field also they are deflected. So the next one is in magnetic field, deflected towards north pole. So that means in both electric field and magnetic field, these cathode rays are deflected. In electric field towards positive pole, in magnetic field towards north pole, they get deflected. Okay, next. Now, one more property is, suppose in the path of this cathode rays, if you place any gas, this cathode rays can cause the ionization of that gas. Means gases get ionized by cathode rays. That means the gas can split into ion plus electrons. So these cathode rays can cause ionization of gases. Cathode rays can cause ionization of gases present in their path. Next, suppose if these cathode rays are made to fall on the surface of certain metals like copper and tungsten, then they can produce X-rays. So they produce X-rays when made to fall on some metals. So these cathode rays can produce X-rays when made to fall on some metals. And even, and one more property, they can produce heating effect. Means when the cathode rays are made to fall on some metals, they causes heating of the metal surface. They can produce a heating effect. And one more, suppose if we carried out if we have studied the nature of cathode rays by taking hydrogen gas in one case, oxygen gas in another case, some nitrogen gas in another case. See, whatever the gas we have taken in the discharge tube, irrespective of the nature of the gas taken in the discharge tube, always the properties of cathode rays remains same. That means the characteristic properties of cathode rays are independent on the nature of the gas taken. For example, if I taken different gases in the discharge tube, they can produce different colors. But whatever the gas you have taken in the discharge tube, always cathode rays consist of same material particles, nothing but electrons. That means characteristic properties of cathode rays are independent on nature of gas. So whatever the gas you have taken, the properties of cathode rays remains same. So these are some characteristic properties of cathode rays. See once again. So when a high potential of 10,000 volts is applied at a low pressure of 0.01 mm atmospheric pressure in the discharge tube, cathode rays are produced. So these are the conditions required. Cathode rays are produced when a high voltage of 10,000 volts at a low pressure of 0.101 mm pressure is applied, then cathode rays are produced. And this was first studied by the scientist J.J. Thomson. So what these cathode rays are, what are the characteristic properties of cathode rays are? First one, cathode rays are produced from cathode and travel in straight lines without any deflection. Second one, these cathode rays are invisible. They are not visible to our eyes. Cathode rays are invisible, but their nature can be studied by the phenomenon called as a fluorescence or phosphorescence. So by using a fluorescent material like zinc sulfide, we can study the nature of cathode rays. Next, third one. So they travel in straight lines without any deflection in absence of either electric field or magnetic field. If no field is applied, they travel in straight lines only. Next, if electric field is applied perpendicular to the path of cathode rays, then these cathode rays are deflected towards positive pole. This indicates that the cathode rays consist of negatively charged particles, and these negatively charged particles, whatever present in cathode rays, are nothing but called as electrons. So the negatively charged particles present in cathode rays are nothing but electrons. In magnetic field, they are deflected towards north pole. Next, if any gas is placed in the path of cathode rays, that cathode rays can cause ionization of that gases. Next, when cathode rays are made to fall on the surface of certain metals, they can produce X-rays. For example, the metals like copper or tungsten. On the surface of copper or tungsten, if you pass cathode rays, then from the tungsten or copper surface, X-rays will be produced, means X-rays will be emitted. Next, when these rays are made to fall on the surface of metal, they can produce a heating effect, because this cathode rays consist of some kinetic electrons with some kinetic energy. When the strikes on the metal surface, they can produce heating effect. And irrespective of the gas taken in the discharge tube, always cathode rays consists of same particles, nothing but electrons. So the characteristic properties of cathode rays are independent on the nature of the gas what is taken in the discharge tube. So these are some characteristic properties of cathode rays which are studied by the scientist J.J. Thomson. Okay. So this is regarding discovery of cathode rays and characteristic properties of cathode rays. Next, after discovery of cathode rays, the characteristic properties of cathode rays also studied by J.J. Thomson, and has calculated the specific charge of electron by doing some modifications in cathode ray discharge tube. Then see now, specific charge. What is meant by specific charge? Charge per unit mass, nothing but E by M. Here E means charge of electron, M is mass of electron. The ratio of E by M is nothing but a charge of electron per unit mass, simply called as specific charge, E by M. Specific charge of electron. Right. So this specific charge of electron also discovered by the scientist J.J. Thomson only. How has determined a specific charge of electron? Let us see here now. So this is a cathode ray discharge tube. This is cathode connected to the source, and just this cathode ray discharge tube is modified, just like as the picture tube of television, like this. In television sets, picture tube will be like this only, almost similar here. Like this, it is just modified. And here this is the screen, and this screen is coated with zinc sulfide screen. This is ZNS. And now in the path of cathode rays, he has placed a perforated anode. Anode with a small hole. This is the perforated anode. So instead of taking anode, J.J. Thomson has taken a perforated anode, and the pressure inside this discharge tube is reduced to 0.01 mm, and a high voltage of 10,000 volts is applied here, just like as earlier what we discussed. Then cathode rays are produced from this, and these cathode rays travel in straight lines without any deflection, and we can observe a bright spot at the point B here, let us assume. If no field is applied, cathode rays travel in straight lines only without any deflection. Now, then what J.J. Thomson did is, he has applied both electric field as well as magnetic field perpendicular to the path of the cathode rays. That means, for example, like this cathode rays are traveling. Then he has placed one electric plate here and one electric plate here, positive and negative plates, perpendicular to the path of cathode rays. And a magnetic field he has applied like this. One is front and one is behind. So both magnetic field and electric field are present perpendicular to each other and also perpendicular to the path of the cathode rays. So mutually perpendicular, all these three are. So he has applied both electric field and magnetic field which are mutually perpendicular to each other. So here electric field is applied. Let us see here. This is north pole. Let us assume this is south pole, and this is the magnet here what is placed, and a magnetic field is also applied here. Like this. This is positive, this is negative. So here what you have placed here, electric plates. and what you have placed the magnetic poles. These electric plates and magnetic poles both are mutually perpendicular to the path of the cathode rays. And he has studied the nature of these cathode rays under the influence of this electric field as well as magnetic field. Let us assume. First, I will apply only electric field. I'll take positive, yeah, negative one. So if I apply only electric field, that means no magnetic field is there. Then what happens? This cathode rays are negatively charged, so they are deflected towards positive plate. Then we can observe that the cathode rays will deflect like this. And at point C, we can observe a bright spot. So in the presence of electric field, we can observe the bright spot at point C. Suppose if electric field is not applied, only magnetic field is applied, then what happens? These cathode rays are deflected towards here and we can observe a bright spot at point A. So if only magnetic field is applied at A, we can observe. Between B and A, we can observe at any point bright spot. If only electric field is applied, between B and C, we can observe bright spot. Now, suppose if we apply both electric field and magnetic field with variable fields, then we can notice a bright spot from point A to point C. In between, at any point, we can observe the bright spot here. Means we can detect the cathode rays in between A and C. Even we can make the cathode rays to travel in straight light only without any deflection by applying both electric field and magnetic field to the equal extent. Suppose what the magnetic field we are applying here, what the electric field we are applying here. If magnetic field and electric field get nullified each other, then cathode rays travel in straight lines without any deflection. And what J.J. Thomson did in this experiment is, in this experiment, J.J. Thomson has studied the deflection of cathode rays under the influence of both electric field and magnetic field by varying the field strengths. Then we can notice the cathode rays in between point A and point C, depending on the field strength what we apply. Okay. Now here, on what factors this deflection of cathode rays depends? What are the factors that can affect the deflection of cathode rays? The first factor is charge on the particles. The charge present on the particles can decide the extent of deflection. Suppose if a charge present on the particles is increased, as the charge present on the particles increases, then deflection also increases. More the charge, more is the tendency to attract towards opposite pole, then deflection will be more. So as the charge present on the particles increases, deflection increases. More the charge, more the deflection. Second one, mass of the particle. So as the mass of the particle increases, extent of deflection decreases. Lighter particles can deflect more than compared to heavier particles. So as the mass present on the particle increases, the extent of deflection decreases. And third one is applied strength, field strength. What the magnetic field and electric field we are applying here? What is the strength of the field we are applying? If you apply more electric field strength, deflection will be more. If you apply less field strength, then deflection will be less. So these are the three factors which can affect the deflection of cathode rays. So as the charge of the particle increases, deflection increases. Lighter particles deflect more than compared to heavier particles. As the applied field strength increases, extent of deflection increases. That is, as the magnetic field strength increases or as the electric field strength increases, then the deflection of cathode rays increases. Even by adjusting electric field and magnetic field in such a way that we can allow the cathode rays to travel in straight lines without any deflection also, even by applying both the fields. By applying both the fields also, we can allow these cathode rays to travel in straight line only without any deflection. Means that what the electric field and magnetic field we are applying, both get nullify each other. There is no effect on the cathode rays. So like this, J.J. Thomson has studied the deflection of cathode rays under the influence of both electric field and magnetic field. So and he has taken a data between the applied strength and extent of deflection. Based on this experiment, he has calculated a specific charge of electron. So E by M of electron is nothing but equal to 1.75882 into 10 power 11 coulombs per kilogram. So this is the specific charge of electron, 1.75882 into 10 power 11 coulombs per kilogram. Approximately we can take this as 1.76 into 10 power 11 coulombs per kilogram also. Means per 1 kg of electrons, they possess a charge of 1.75882 into 10 power 11 coulombs per kilogram. Like this, J.J. Thomson has discovered, means calculated the specific charge of electron. Let us see once again the total experiment. The specific charge of electron was discovered by J.J. Thomson. So J.J. Thomson has modified the discharge tube. Instead of taking an anode, he has taken a perforated anode, and behind this anode a zinc sulfide screen is placed, which is a fluorescent screen. Then when electric field is applied at a low pressure of 0.01 mm and high voltage of 10,000 volts, then cathode rays are produced. And these cathode rays travel in straight lines, and we can notice a bright spot at point B. Then J.J. Thomson has applied electric field and magnetic field both to the perpendicular to the path of the cathode rays. So electric field is perpendicular as well as magnetic field is also perpendicular to each other, and these two fields also mutually perpendicular to each other. So path of cathode rays, electric field, magnetic field, if you compare any two, mutually perpendicular to each other. And if only electric field is applied, then cathode rays are deflected towards point C. If only magnetic field is applied, then cathode rays are deflected towards point A. Then the maximum deflection is between A and C. Then J.J. Thomson has studied the deflection of these cathode rays under the influence of the varying field effects of magnetic field and electric field. And then from the data what was obtained, he has calculated the specific charge of electron as 1.75882 into 10 power 11 coulombs per kilogram. So this is the way of calculating a specific charge of electron by J.J. Thomson. Right, next, come to another experiment. Charge of electron. See, the scientist Millikan has calculated the charge of the electron by oil drop experiment. By the oil drop experiment, Millikan has calculated the charge of the electron. See that charge of electron was discovered as 1.602 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. This is the charge of electron. 1.602 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs. Then how J.J. Thomson has discovered the charge of the electron? By this Millikan oil drop experiment. Actually, this oil drop experiment is not included in the syllabus. Just a brief description given in textbook. Just I'll explain the same. Just here. So this is a chamber. So for PU's examination, this experiment is not necessary. Just a brief description given here. So this is a chamber. So in this chamber, so oil is atomized. This is oil, and by using a device here, the oil is atomized. That means oil get divided into tiny particles, very tiny particles. And this is electric plate which is having perforation, and this is a positive plate, and here one more electric plate is here, which is a negative plate. Okay, then see here. So by using this atomizer, oil is allowed to atomize, means as a tiny droplets, and these tiny droplets of oil comes out through this perforation downward slowly. Then these oil particles come down. The oil particles will move under the influence of gravitation force only. So the oil particles move under the influence of gravitation force. Then by using an X-ray source, X-rays are allowed to pass into this chamber. So when X-rays are allowed to pass into this chamber, whatever the gas present inside this chamber, the gas get ionized. And these ions, when collide with these oil droplets, they get charged. So oil droplets get charged whenever these ions collide with the oil droplets. Now, and this we can notice by using a telescope here. This is a telescope eyepiece. So this is a telescope eyepiece. Through this telescope, we can see the movement of these oil droplets. Okay, this is a description for this experiment. See once again. So in a chamber, oil is allowed to atomize and allowed to move downward under the influence of gravitational force. And the two electric plates are placed, and this is positive plate and this is negative plate. And when these oil droplets are coming downward, X-rays are allowed to pass in this chamber, and this X-rays can cause the ionization of gases. So when the gas undergo ionization and these ions collide with these oil droplets, as a result, oil droplets becomes electrically charged. Now, this oil droplet means charged oil droplet. This charged oil droplet move under the influence of gravitational force as well as applied electric field. Now, we can vary the movement of this oil droplet by changing the field strength. Even we can retard the movement of this oil particle. Suppose if electric field is applied, here negative charge is there, oil droplet is negative charge. When this oil droplet move towards the electric plate, then both will repel each other. If apply more field strength here, then this can repel this oil droplet more effectively. Then we can retard the movement of oil droplet. So the movement of this oil droplet can be varied by varying the applied field strength. So what Millikan did is, Millikan has studied the movement of these oil droplets under the influence of this electric field. And based on that, he has calculated a charge of the electron. And one more major point in this is, the total charge, whatever the charge present on the oil droplet is equal to n times of the charge of the electron. So the charge present on this oil droplet will be either 1 time or 2 time or 3 times of the charge present on the electron. This is a major point here. The total charge on the oil droplet is equal to n times of the charge of the electron. So like that, he has calculated the charge of the oil droplets. And from the data what is obtained, the charge of the oil droplets, he has calculated the charge of the electron. For example, let us assume what is the data obtained here is 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. So 3.2 into 10 power minus 19, 4.8 into 10 power minus 19, 6.4 into 10 power minus 19, 8.0 into 10 power minus 19. Like this the data was obtained. Say these are the charges what are present on the oil droplets calculated by Millikan. See, this we can represent as 1 into 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. This we can represent as 2 into 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. This we can write as 3 into 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. Like this, 4 into 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. And this is 5 into 1.6 into 10 power minus 19. In all these, this is the variable n, this is nothing but. See, this is common. This is the charge of the electron. Like this, by calculating the charge present on the oil droplets, Millikan has calculated the charge of the electron. The charge of the oil droplet is equal to n times of the charge of the electron. So, based on the data obtained, Millikan has calculated the charge of the electron. So, the charge of this electron is 1.602 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs. So, the basic point what you should remember here is the charge present on the oil droplet is equal to n times of the charge of the electron. So, from this Millikan has calculated the charge of the electron as 1.602 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs. Right. So, this is regarding a discovery of charge of the electron. Then what about mass? So, this experiment is not necessary for PUC, just remember the value, that's enough. What about mass of electron? So, electron mass is very less. We cannot calculate the mass of electron directly. So, mass of electron was calculated from the value of specific charge and charge of electron. Just here, E by M, the ratio of charge to specific charge. E get cancelled, then you can get M, nothing but. Right? What is the charge of electron? 1.602 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs. What is the specific charge of electron? 1.75882 into 10 power 11 coulombs per kilogram. Then if you simplify this, we can get 9.109 into 10 power minus 31 kilograms. This is the mass of electron. Since mass of electron is very less, it cannot be calculated directly. Mass of the electron was calculated from the values of charge and specific charge. The ratio of charge to specific charge can give the mass of the electron. So this is regarding a discovery of cathode rays, nothing but electrons, charge, mass. Overall, the charge of electron is 1.602 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs, which is nothing but negatively charged particle. Specific charge is 1.75882 into 10 power 11 coulombs per kilogram. From the charge and specific charge, we can calculate mass as 9.109 into 10 power minus 31 kilograms. So this is regarding a discovery of electron and characteristic properties of electrons. So in tomorrow class, we will discuss regarding a proton discovery, the characteristic properties, neutron discovery.